I am Cantor Penny Kessler, a Bethel resident and senior clergy at the United Jewish Center in Danbury. Thank you, Rahab, for inviting me to speak. At some time between the 8th and 7th centuries of the Common Era, the authors of the Hebrew Bible taught this: do not stand idly by while your neighbor's blood is shed. I am so angry. Our Black neighbor's blood is being shed, and too many of us are ignoring it, standing by, videoing the bloodshed, and witnessing it without protesting. You know who's standing by? People who swear an oath to protect and serve, and yet do exactly the opposite. White people whose first instinct when they see a Black person is to cower in fear, go on a hate-filled rant and spew hatred and suspicion, and as we've seen more and more, call the police and lie, and even go so far as to murder Black men, women, and children simply because of the color of their skin. Who else is standing by? Elected officials who refuse to condemn the actions and rhetoric of their fellow so-called leaders, either out of fear or perhaps, just perhaps, because they're grateful someone else said what they believe. Standing by are people who use bigoted language on social media and the people who refuse to call them out. They are the people who refuse to be quiet and listen and learn when their racial prejudice is pointed out to them. Standing by are the people who deny Black victims the right to have their wounds and pain acknowledged, and the people who insist that the calls for visibility of a minority group and their existence and their suffering are a threat to their own identity. We are all guilty, to some extent, of standing by while our neighbors bleed. So what do we do about it? How do we take the first steps in stopping the flow of blood of our Black neighbors? Centuries ago, a rabbi named Hillel taught this: if I am not for myself, who will be for me? If I am only for myself, what am I? And if not now, when? It is the right of Black people to be seen and heard. It is the right of Black people to stand up and refuse to be victimized. It is their right to be heard without condemnation, vague excuses, the "yeah, but" that too many of us engage in, behavior that is both demeaning and humiliating. So what am I if my first instinct is to think only about myself? When a Black man or woman or child tells us that they are hurting because of the daily harassment or violence perpetrated on them because they are Black, it is the white person's responsibility, our duty and obligation, to not insist that we too deserve attention. The idea that all lives matter is grotesquely self-centered. If a house is burning and firefighters come to battle the blaze, it is hideous for someone to exclaim, "You should be taking care of all the houses on my street." I read the other day on a social media platform someone wanting to know how come we people in Bethel should be outraged by police brutality against Black people because, well, that's not happening in Bethel. Seriously? What are we if we don't reach out and hold up and support Black people who are being threatened and murdered. And when? This country has a history of racism even before it was founded. General Lee may have surrendered at Appomattox, but our country is dotted with statues to the very men who fought to keep human beings enslaved. White men and women still freely wave the flag that represents slavery and racial bigotry. Black American history is taught in too few public schools. So, friends, if not now, then when? I say, when is now.